Want to learn how to build your first Flutter app in 2024? If yes, then this video is for you. In this video, we are diving into Flutter, so we'll understand what is Flutter, why it's so popular, and how to run your very first Flutter app. So, if you are a complete beginner or just curious about mobile app development, then this video is the perfect place to start. So, let's dive in. So, what is Flutter? In simple terms, Flutter is a free, open source UI software development kit from Google. It allows us to build applications for multiple platforms like Android, iOS, web, Windows, and even Linux from a single code base. Now, let's go through some of its key features. First one, cross-platform development. Flutter enables developers to write code once and deploy it on various platforms, significantly reducing the time and effort compared to developing separate apps for each platform. Second one, Flutter is written in Dart programming language. So even if you have never heard of Dart, then don't worry, it's a very beginner friendly language. And if you have ever worked with any object oriented programming language, then it's very easy to understand. Okay. Third, widgets. Widgets are the fundamental building blocks of Flutter core concept. Everything we see in a Flutter application is nothing but a widget. From layout, buttons, text, that everything we see on the screen is nothing but a widget. And fourth one, Flutter provides a hot reload feature. Means if we make any change in our code and save those changes instantly get reflected in our UI. So this feature significantly speeds up and streamline the development process. Now let's see how to set up our machine for Flutter app development. So for that purpose, let's open up the browser window. Okay, now let's go to flutter.dev. Okay, so this is the website for Flutter. Let's click on get started. Okay, so here we have to choose our development platform. We are on macOS, so we will click on this one. Let's first target iOS platform. Let's click on this one, and these are the hardware requirements. Like CPU cores must be minimum 4, 8 are recommended, memory in GB 8, recommended is 16, display resolution and free disk space. We are satisfying all these requirements. Let's go down. Okay, so we are in the software requirements now. To write and compile Flutter code for iOS, install the following packages. Okay, in the operating system, we have to make sure we are developing on macOS 11 Big Sur. So this Mac machine has macOS Sequoia 15, so we are good with that one. Then this machine is an Apple Silicon based machine, so we have to make sure that we need to install Rosetta 2. So let's copy this command. Let's open up the terminal and run this command. As it is a sudo command, it's asking me for my Mac password. So entering my password. Yeah, it's installed successfully. Let's go back to the window. Okay. Now first we will install Flutter SDK. So let's go to that part. Okay, so this is the section install Flutter SDK. So what we have to do, there are two ways to install it, using VS Code, and we can install it manually. Okay, so let's go through this option. I have Visual Studio for Code already installed on my machine, so let's open up Visual Studio for Code. Okay, then we have to make sure the Visual Studio Code version should be greater than 1.77. Let's check. We have version 1.95, so we are good with that one. Okay, and we have to install Flutter extension for VS Code. So let's go back to the Visual Studio Code, go to the extension tab and search for Flutter. So I think this is the extension .code.org. Okay, so let's install it. This extension will also install the Dart extension, which supports the Dart programming language. Okay, so it's now installed. So let's go back to the page, and over here what it's saying, we have to open up the command palette and run the Flutter new project command. Okay, so let's go back to Visual Studio Code and let's hit Command Shift P, Flutter new. Okay, and it's saying could not find Flutter SDK, please download, or if already downloaded, locate SDK. So we don't have Flutter SDK installed, so let's click on download SDK. It's asking me for a location, so let's select in my home directory. I will select this developer folder and I will create one more folder over here called tooling, create and clone Flutter. So it's downloading the Flutter SDK now. It may take some time, maybe a few minutes. So let's see. Allow Visual Studio Code to find the local devices on local network. Okay, allow. It's asking me to install the Flutter SDK to the path environment variable so that it will be accessible in the terminal as well. So yeah, we will do that. Copy SDK path to keyboard. So let's click on this. Okay, now let's open up the Finder window. Okay, let's go to our home directory. Okay, let's hit Command Shift dot so that we'll be able to see all the hidden files. Let's open up our .zshrc file. Okay, and over here let's paste that path that we just copied from the VS Code. Okay, so this is the path. So let's go to the installation page. Okay, let's go to the second tab, download and install. Here we have that path already. Let's copy that one, go to the ZSHRC file, paste over here. Okay, and $home is nothing but my home directory, which is user/Manoj Kulkarni, and I just have to change the next path. Okay, let's copy this list, paste this over here. Okay, so this is our final path. $home is nothing but user/home Manoj Kulkarni, which is my home directory. Okay, and we have, if I go to the Finder, if I go to the developer folder, okay, under tooling folder we have installed the Flutter SDK. Okay, so this is the path, users/Manoj Kulkarni, developer, tooling, Flutter and bin. Okay, so let's save this, close the editor, close the Finder. Let's restart our terminal. Okay, so that is done. Now go back to the Visual Studio Code. We already done this, so let's close this. VS Code ID extension for Dart uses Google Analytics. Okay, so okay, and it's still saying So let's click on locate SDK. It's not finding the Flutter SDK. So let's select our path, developer, tooling, Flutter, and bin folder. Okay, set Flutter SDK folder. Okay, click escape to come out of this window. Okay, now let's go back to the terminal and check the Flutter SDK has been set in our global environment or not. Okay, so let's click Flutter. Yeah, as we can see, we are seeing some output. So that means we have successfully installed the Flutter SDK, and also the Flutter command is now available globally in our machine. Okay, so that's a good thing. Now let's go through the list again. Okay, so we have done the Flutter SDK installation. We have also installed the Flutter extension for Visual Studio Code and also installed the SDK. So the second option is we can download this SDK, which Visual Studio Code help us to download. We can download that manually over here. We can copy that to a particular location, as we did in our case. We have copied that SDK to our developer folder and just use that path. Okay, so this is nothing but the same process. Okay, now the Flutter SDK is installed. Let's see what are the other components that we need to install. We have installed the Flutter SDK first because there is one tool that comes with Flutter SDK which is known as a Flutter Doctor. It helps us to check the status of our development environment. So let's go to the terminal and let's clear this terminal first using the clear command. And if I type Flutter and Doctor command and hit enter, it will analyze my development environment and it will give me an output. What are the components that I'm missing and I need to install it. Okay, so as we can see over here, we have installed our Flutter SDK through stable channel 3.24.5. We have macOS Sequoia 15.1.1. okay, so that's good. Okay, I have already installed Android Studio, so it's done, but there are some commands that I need to run to make sure the Android Studio is completely set up for Flutter development. So let's do that first. It's saying to develop for Android devices, Android SDK version 30.35.0.0, some Android licenses not accepted. To resolve this, run this command. Okay, so let's copy this command, paste it, enter. Review licenses that have not been accepted. Okay, yes, yes. Okay, this is the license agreement for the Android Studio. Okay, all SDK package licenses have been accepted. Okay, let's clear. Okay, let's run again Flutter Doctor. Now, after executing the command from the Flutter Doctor output, we can see that the Android SDK has been set up successfully. We can see a tick over here, so that's good. Now only the Xcode part is remaining. So I have already installed Xcode, and if you want to see a detailed guide on how to set up this Mac machine for development environment, I have already created another video which go through a step-by-step process on setting up the Mac machine for development environment. So please check it out. I will put that link in the show notes below. Okay, so let's continue. For Xcode, we have to make sure that Xcode is installed and downloaded. So I have already done that, so we are good with that one. And once it is installed, we have to run these two commands. So let's run these commands. Copy, paste, enter. As it is a sudo command, I will have to enter my Mac password. Entering the password. That's done. Let's run the second command. Copy, paste, enter. That is also done. Okay, now let's clear the terminal using the clear command. Let's hit Flutter Doctor again to see the status. Okay, so for Xcode it's still showing as an exclamation mark. To develop for iOS and macOS, Cocoa Pods is not installed. Now the next thing is we need to install Cocoa Pods. Okay, so we'll be installing Cocoa Pods through Homebrew. Homebrew is just a super handy package manager for macOS which allows us to install the all sorts of software using just a command on our terminal. So if you have not installed Homebrew, we just have to go to Homebrew. Okay, just execute this command on your terminal and Homebrew will be installed. And just like this command, we can just install any software. Okay, so now we can install Cocoa Pods using the Homebrew. Okay, so let's clear the terminal again. To install Cocoa Pods, we have to type brew install Cocoa Pods. Okay, let's hit enter. Now it's installing the Cocoa Pods on our machine. It may take few minutes, so let's see. Let's come back when the installation is done. The installation has been done, so let's go through the output and see if there is any extra step that we need to do in order to complete the installation of Cocoa Pods. Looks like nothing. We are good with this one. Okay, let's clear the terminal. Okay, and now let's run the Flutter Doctor command again. As we can see from the Flutter Doctor command output, our development environment has been set up for Flutter app development. So now we are ready to create our first Flutter application. So let's do that now. Let's close the browser window. Let's close this terminal. Okay, now let's open up our Visual Studio Code. Okay, now to create our first Flutter application, let's use the keyboard shortcut Command Shift P. Okay, this opens up this command palette and let's select this first option, Flutter New Project. If you are not seeing this option, just type Flutter and it will filter out those options. So we have to select this option, Flutter New Project. Let's select this option. Now it is giving us the project templates. So there are different templates to create the project. First one is application, empty, then package, plugin. Okay, so let's select the first option, application. Okay, now it's asking us to select a location on our machine to create the project. So let's create a new folder over here. Projects. Okay, let's click create and select this folder. Okay, now it's asking us to enter the project name. So let's type it first, Flutter application. While entering the project name, just make sure all the characters are in small case and the words are separated by the underscore. This is just a convention that Flutter community follows to name the project. Okay, so now the project name is entered. Let's hit enter. This will create our first Flutter application, and it's already done. Okay, so the project is already created, and as you can see over here, your Flutter project is ready. Press F5 to start running. Okay, so let's hit F5. So now it's launching our Flutter application. Yep, so our first Flutter application is successfully running as a web application. So we can click on this plus button and it will increment the counter over here. So let's close this one. Now let's run this application on Android or maybe on iOS. So for that purpose, what we can do, we can hit Command Shift P, which will open up the command palette, and type Flutter. And over here there must be an option to select devices. Okay, now it's giving us options whether we want to run our application as a macOS application or as a web application or as an Android application or as an iOS application. So let's select Android. Okay, and hit enter. Now it's launching the Android emulator. Okay, but it's not running our application, so let's hit this button again, run and debug. Yeah, now it's starting to run this application on our Android emulator. First run may take some time, so let's wait. Our Flutter application is now successfully running on Android emulator as well. So you can see over here. Okay, now let's make a quick change in our code to see how the Flutter hot reload feature works. So as we can see over here, this title is getting displayed over here, Flutter demo homepage. Let's just change it to my first Flutter application. Okay, and now if we save this, as we can see over here, that change got instantly reflected on our Android emulator, so it's very good. Now let's stop this and run our application on iOS simulator. So for that purpose, again hit Command Shift P, which will open up the command palette. Select the Flutter select device option, and let's select Start iOS Simulator option over here. It should open up. Yeah, it has opened up iOS 16 plus simulator, and it will now deploy our Flutter application this simulator. So let's just wait for this one. Still doing the processes. Oh no, it's not running it. It just launched the simulator. So let's hit run debug again to launch it on iOS simulator. First run may take some time, so let's come back when it's done. Okay, so the Flutter application is also launched on the iOS simulator. You can see over here, we can quickly make a change again, like over here. We can add an exclamation mark, save, and as we can see over here, that change is now reflected on iOS simulator. And that's it. So our development environment has been set up for Flutter application development, and we have also created our first Flutter application, which was very quick and easy. We were also able to run our application as a web app, then on Android emulator, and also on iOS simulator, which was easy and quick. So we have also make a quick change and see how the Flutter hot reload feature works. So Flutter is just an amazing tool that simplifies the app development and making it accessible to everyone, even if we are just starting it out. So in future videos, we will dive deeper into the Flutter part. So make sure to subscribe to the channel if you are interested. And if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. And thank you for watching the video. I will see you in the next one. Happy coding.